So finally then, on to the how to tackle the scenario questions. So in the scenario, your son or daughter is presented with a hypothetical situation, and they have to identify the types of torts that are involved in that situation, the relevant rules, and mention the cases that establish the rules, and then they apply the laws to that scenario. And as I've said previously, usually it's just a thinly disguised case that they're already aware of from their studies. The job then is to establish whether there is liability, that their liability is the defendant's liability for the tort, and why are they liable. They also need to establish if there's any defence that reduces the liability and why that defence is available. And finally, identify what remedy is available. So then the four cornerstones of any essay response or scenario response in tort law are: what is the tort that we're dealing with? Or it could be plural, it could be torts. So is it occupier's liability and psychiatric injury? Is it a nuisance? Is it Rylands and Fletcher and occupier's liability? So it could be any combination. The second cornerstone is what factors establish liability. So what is there in place? What needs defining? What needs proving as to the relationships? And this will be either through statutes, as in occupier's liability, or through common law principles. We need to establish who can make a claim, because sometimes people will be excluded from making the claim, or maybe there can be additional people who can be claimants who you wouldn't have expected. And any terms need defining or explaining. The third cornerstone then is what defences are available to the defendant. If a claim is being brought against them for damages, are there any factors that they can put in place? And finally, what remedies or damages are available? When establishing liability, for each of the torts, there are going to be some very specific rules to that tort. So if it is occupier's liability, issues to do with things like allurement where children are concerned, or the responsibility if you're employing tradespeople to do work on your property. Those are the kind of specifics that need detailing if they're in the scenario. And the defences, we could talk about contributory negligence, we could talk about consent or valenti, or we could talk about if warning signs have been put in place, does that reduce liability? So long as these things are in place, that's the basic framework for doing a tort scenario, which your son or daughter should be pretty adept at by now. Thank you for listening. I should say, they should only deal with what's relevant, and they should always use proving cases, and that goes for human rights law and for criminal law too. Okay, thank you for listening. Feel free to subscribe to the channel or leave comments if you've got any suggestions for improvement or content you want covered.